G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Trewin. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome everyone. Today I'm interviewing John Lenker and Assaf Arie from Lenker, based in Minneapolis, USA. Thanks for your time today, guys.
Thanks for having us on the show.
Let's start with how we know each other. Beth on your team put us in touch. Thought you'd both be great guests to come on.
Well, we appreciate her doing that.
Tell the audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
Well, in a nutshell, we offer growth consulting and marketing services. We're a little bit of a mashup. People think of like a marketing agency or an advertising agency. We're a little bit more like an intersection between a management consulting firm, a think tank, and a company that offers marketing services. We are focused not so much on doing projects for clients as accompanying our clients on a journey towards achieving goals, right? It's about going through the wilderness together and blazing the trail. We become an extension of an executive team, and we are focused on protecting the best interests of a client, much like a lawyer or an accountant would. So that's what makes us a little bit unique.
And do you want to give the audience a few examples, perhaps, maybe some clients or type of clients you work with? Do you specialize in any industries or geographic locations?
We really don't. We specialize in companies who've made the decision that they want to make the necessary changes to become the market leader. We call it to become the undeniable solution in the market, meaning that when a potential client or customer or subscriber learns about you as a competitive force, they feel like it would be ridiculous to go with anybody else besides you. That's what we work to achieve. And we find that there are many industries where we've had a chance to bring our practice, from aerospace to wine and spirits to heavy equipment manufacturing to nonprofits, fintech, SaaS platforms. Med tech is a big focus for us, medical technology. So it's a very broad range. But the unifying characteristic is a management team that says, we really want to be head and shoulders above the competition in our market space. What do we need to do to get there?
And how did you start out?
Well, Assaf is on this call as well. We both come from different backgrounds. I started this firm back in 2002 under a different name, and we focused on interactive work primarily, so the digital space. But I came from a background in both e-learning and advertising, and I felt like there was a real need in the marketplace for a company that was focused on being super efficient in the work and focused on outcomes, not just doing projects. So eventually I found that clients needed a lot more than just a new website or some kind of digital ad campaign, but they needed branding, they needed strategy. And we kept kind of attaching these other types of projects onto an engagement until finally, in around 2009, 2010, I changed the company's name to my last name, Lenker. It's a German word that means pilot or guide or driver, and that's really, it signifies what we want to do, help guide our clients through the tough places they need to get through to get to the success that they seek. And I ran that until about 2013 or 14, and I realized that I was never going to get much further than I'd gotten in my career, which was basically a lot of ups and downs. Grow for a while, work on projects, then try to fill the pipeline. It felt like a merry-go-round for me. And I started to think about how could I find other competent people to come in as partners in this business and really help it grow into something that has a lot of potential. And actually at the time, and Assaf can get into this, he was a client, he was one of my very important clients, and as an employee, and he decided that he wanted to move on, and I recruited him and two other people to come in and help anchor, the various aspects that we were serving our clients, business management, finance, marketing, branding, systems, technology. And when I made that decision, it brought a lot of change. It brought a lot of difficulty for me having to learn how to let go. But what it's resulted in is 10x growth for us as a business. I stepped aside as CEO, and maybe Asaf can pick up and tell some of that story. But I really credit him as the person who really has kind of engineered our ascension here as a business.
Yeah, yeah. Asaf, maybe tell us a bit about your journey. So you're working for one of the Lenker clients. Maybe tell us, how that came about moving into the business.
So my background is business and accounting. Um, Graduated a double major, practiced accounting for a few years. And then when I came to the US, I got involved in a construction company. I was a partner and a CFO of a, at the time, not the most successful construction company. They were transitioning out of the recession, the 2008 recession. And so I came into a company that needed to be reshaped. And I was able to bring my slightly different culture uh, into into the business, brought John, Lenker, um, in as our marketing partner. So that's how our journey started that's how we got to know each other. I was a client, and Lenker was our marketing lead. We did rebranding, marketing piloting, campaigns, and we really experienced growing that construction company from barely $1.5 million into $14.5 million 9 years later. That's when I left. And John and I became close over the years. We had ups and downs in the relationship, but I had enough in the construction world. That was not my vision. I kind of landed there by chance. And about 12 months before, John tried to recruit me, and I said, at the moment I'm not interested. But when I told him that I'm leaving, I kind of gave him a heads up, like a lot of the people that I work with in that company. So I gave him a heads up, and he said, why don't you come and join us? And at that point, I was a little bit more interested to learn, and I saw the potential. And I saw it was very clear to me before I joined what is needed in order to start to try be successful, and not hand to mouth, like we say. You kill and you eat, the same day, like, how to build a system. So when I joined, it was, the terms were clear, and I set the expectations. And I love building teams. I love systems and growth mechanisms. The way that I look at it is like a board, and there's a lot of gears, and you start building those gears, and one turns, and all of them are turning, right? And the art is to put the right gears in the right place, and the right size, and the right shape, and replace them when they get rusty. That's also a key. So that's how our journey started. Was 4 years ago now, right?
Yeah, phenomenal growth that you took the construction business over those years, tenfold. So in John, 2002, when you started the business, how old were you then?
I believe I was 33. I'd been with a major e-learning company, was on the team that trained millions of people all over the world for some of the biggest logos around. And I got a book deal, and I was writing about how cybernetic systems could be used to guide human thought in the marketing process. Got recruited away from that company by a major ad agency, and I ran their digital group. But when the book finally came out, I started my own interactive agency. At the time, it was called Inviani, and had some real success with that. Won a lot of international awards, and became had a pretty high profile there for a while. And one thing led to another, and we just kind of kept rolling. But like I say, the need to get involved in all aspects of a business, especially small businesses that are just kind of finding their footing. And it's sort of like that game whack-a-mole. You address a problem here and it pops up over there. And
Hmm.
I've always had sort of the intellectual bandwidth to understand the framework around all the areas that a business needs to focus on. My degrees is in business. But I realized that there needed to be someone with real background knowledge in each of the key areas: strategy, finance, human factors and knowledge, and that's helped us really specialize, instead of generalizing and doing the best we can to kind of keep on top of everything. We've got people who've been really dedicated for their entire careers in their areas of specialty.
And do you have some key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of the business over the last 22 years?
Well, I mean, I would focus more on since we started as Lenker, when I changed the company name. um, we really had me as the executive leader, and then several junior people working for me. Lots of ups and downs, but I never had more than four-ish people working at any given time. So one key number is we've over tripled our full-time staff. Uh, so that's a pretty key number. We generally don't disclose our revenue, but it's gone up very substantially, enough to support, you know, 14 households.
Yeah, that's great.
Again, it went up in millions, right?
Yeah, I think you said tenfold earlier, John.
Yeah, 10x,
That's great.
what I will say that I will disclose that uh, the maximum amount of revenue I generated uh, back before I made this change was just under $1 million.
Yep.
So
Yep. Great. When was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
5 years from now.
no, it's one thing to do things in theory. It's another thing to bring partners in and give up control. It's easy intellectually to make that decision, but then when you actually learn how to operate that way, there's some growing pains there.
Yeah, it's not in our DNA, is it, as business owners or entrepreneurs, to let go?
It's hard to let go, and also to determine success, it's challenging. I'm a partner over the years in multiple businesses, and I can give an example in a different business. The business had a really good year in major growth. The business went 3x in 2 years, and it was the most profitable. Just the profit alone was nearly what it was in revenue a few years earlier, right? And I went to the partners and I said, you had one good year. The business is not successful yet. You got to maintain that. You got to repeat that. You got to duplicate that, and you got to continue to grow that. So it's hard. I think for a responsible business owner, it's hard to, while they're still riding the train and pushing this forward, to say, oh, we are a successful business today, because that's when you become complicit. And when you think you're successful, that's when you started to go backwards, right?
Yep.
So, there's always a problem, always going to be a new problem, there's always going to be a challenge. And I see it when we were running, when I was personally running businesses in the tens of thousands of dollars, few $100,000 a year, to running, a couple millions a month, right? There's always going to be a new problem. It's always going to be big. It's always going to be major. It could always take you down. It could be an employee situation. It could be a client situation, a market change and shift, pandemics. I mean, who knows? Recessions, so many things out there that it's so fragile, and you gotta be hands on the pulse all the time to sense, because we all know successful businesses that failed, Kodak, right? Nokia. There's a lot of major companies that became complicit and failed. So it's hard to say. When we retire, and John probably going to be about 50 years before I do, we'll be able to say, that was the moment we knew we became successful. It's hard when you're still riding that train.
Well, that's the next question. What does success look like to you?
Well, I mean, for me, it used to be that I had to have my involvement in every aspect of every client engagement. And where Lenker is today, I have almost no involvement in the day-to-day operations of any engagement. And I'm more of an advisor and a mentor to the people on our team. I spend my time building relationships in the sense of business development, but also in the sense of recruiting. And it's sort of a luxury. So that's to me a sign of success is that really great work is happening and people are being helped. And oftentimes I don't have very deep familiarity with what's going on in any given time. So and I'm still under 60 years old, so that's a pretty good feeling.
Great question for you guys. Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
Well, I feel like the thing that is most neglected and we find most often is a failure to do a sufficient market opportunity analysis to really understand what is the market opportunity. If you think of like a surfer catching a wave, and you as sort of the entrepreneur, you're trying to decide which wave to catch and at what time. And there's different things that can go wrong. One is you could pick the right wave, but you could try to approach the wave at the wrong time, either too early or too late. And think of it like an investor who gets a stock tip. Usually, by the time an average person, hears that, hey, Apple is, buy Apple right now, or buy Tesla or something, it's too late. The professional investors have already exploited the opportunity, and you're likely going to lose. So, catching the wave at the right time, not too early, not too late. Understanding the match between your skills and competencies and capabilities and really what the need in the marketplace is. Especially in the field of medical technology, it's one of the vertical markets that we pursue quite heavily. Quite often, med tech companies are started by engineers who've got an idea they think is really cool. I can think about how to build this thing that would be so cool, everybody will want it. And they go and they raise money and they spend a lot of time and effort and millions of dollars. And by the time they actually get around to going and talking to people, they don't get it. They don't understand why the thing that you're offering meets a need that they tangibly perceive that they have. They haven't understood how to get it funded through insurance companies and all these kinds of things. So taking the time to do a proper market opportunity analysis, you think of like a fast food restaurant that's going to choose to build in a certain location. They get a lot of data around where to put that restaurant to make sure that it's going to succeed. And in the same way, people who are looking to get into a business should really do the necessary work to understand the competition, understand the market need, understand what the capital requirements are to get up to speed. This is something that is easy for us all to get wrong, is failing to understand the capital requirements. I'll give you an example of a client that we had that had a very, very substantial exit from a major company that purchased their technology in one area, a completely distinct area, and they had an idea for another area, and they ended up putting millions of dollars into it. They didn't do a proper market opportunity analysis. They put all of their runway into building the technology, and by the time they thought it was just going to go viral and everybody was going to buy it, by the time they had to launch, and it's around the time where we got involved and we told them what the capital requirements were to get the traction they wanted to get in the time frame they wanted, it was millions of dollars, and they didn't have the time, they didn't have the money. They'd spent all their money, and that business ended up failing because they thought that we succeeded over here, automatically we'll succeed over there. So doing a proper market opportunity analysis is really important.
Yep. As a, can't remember who said it, but success is a poor teacher.
Exactly. Exactly.
How did you fund your business?
I can speak to when after we joined. It's mainly own capital and sweat equity.
Yep.
I would leave a comment about that because short-term debt for a business to finance growth is close to the closest thing for a business as it is a cancer for a human. It's well, cancer is not addictive, but it's addictive, and it feels cheap at the beginning. It becomes really expensive later on. So I would deter individuals to entrepreneurs to stay away from short-term funding. There's place and room for funding. Depends on the business that you are. If you have equipment related, right? To fund, purchasing of the equipment, um, facilities type, but to fund payroll, to fund your own leisure and expenses, it's too addictive. It feels very convenient at first, and the banks will give it to you as you grow. It's hard to measure profitability when you're early on, right? And you're growing, and there's revenue, and expenses are always ahead of the revenue. You're probably losing money, but you feel you're making money. It's a lot of what's your feeling versus what's the reality is. And we tend to always justify, oh, we burning through cash because we're growing, right? But more likely than not, you're burning through cash because you're not profitable. So either have enough to understand what would you need to grow the business so you can actually invest it. So whatever you've done pre-entrepreneurship, get it ready so then you can invest it in the business and be profitable from day one, or find a partner that can do it, or just sweat equity. But it's super, super, super risky to go after, short-term debt. If you can get access to grants for R&D, things like that, amazing. Depends on the trade that you are and the business that you are, right? But that would be you didn't ask for a tip, but I volunteered a little tip here.
No, I think that's a good point, because if you're being propped up by debt, like you said, it can be addictive. Then the issues upstream, you've got a faulty business model you really need to fix.
Yeah. And you will not, it will take you a while to find out because you got access to cash. You think you're all good. And you got a few $100,000 line of credit, $1 million line of credit. You're drawing partially against it. So you think you're fine. You still have all this, room to grow into, but you're just digging yourself into a hole. And I mean, you're from Australia, but you know that in the US here, we're addicted to debt. And so it's very scary.
So that's the left brain answer to the question. The right brain answer, is that one of the big problems in businesses, especially early on, is a failure to understand the importance of branding. People don't really understand what a brand is, and they think it's their logo and the colors on the website, and what color golf shirt to send to the clients at Christmas or whatever.
I think Jeff Bezos said your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Yeah, that's great. We say that a brand is what people believe about you. It's the real estate that you occupy in their mind that has formed an opinion about your value proposition. Understanding what differentiates you and believing that you actually are differentiated, and helping people, guiding people into comprehension of that understanding and belief is your responsibility as a business. If you don't write your story, other people will write your story and you won't control it. So this is something that we feel is really important. Even if you think about any business idea, a lot of times they start as a brainstorm and maybe on the back of a napkin. And maybe you go home after you have this exciting idea and you tell your significant other about it. And you're excited and you're telling the story. Look at this drawing on the back of the napkin. That's branding right there. You're trying to make them believe something about your idea so they can get excited and say something like, "Wow, that's so exciting. I think you should go for it. Let's look into it. What's the next step?" Right? So you're selling, you're trying to represent an idea in a way that people can believe in and get behind, so that they will say yes to the next thing that they need to say yes to give you permission to pursue the next stage of the journey. Hey, can we spend, a couple $1,000s building a prototype over the next month or so? Sure, honey, go ahead, let's do it. And then you've got the next set of audiences and the next set of audiences. And at each moment, they need to understand what differentiates you. They need to understand the answers to these three questions. Why this? Why now? And why you? Why is this a good idea? Why is now the right time to be catching the wave? And why are you the surfer that should be on that board, navigating that to a successful outcome? So that's all about brand building, and it starts on day one. So
if you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
I would, but without burning through the funding. Put it aside as a cushion. Put it in a high-paying yield CD these days, because that, if you remember my answer earlier about that, it's again, you have the funding, you think you're set, you're burning through this, and then it's gone. So it's really important to measure profitability starting day one. I mean, I cannot stress that enough, because if you're not profitable at $100,000 a year, you will not be profitable at $10 million a year or $100 million a year, right? You got to be able to be profitable from early on.
Yes.
So at least in our industry, maybe in some industries, having more funding makes a difference. In our industry is mainly having the principle, the creativity, with extra cushion of funding, maybe we'll change hiring, go into a couple seniors instead of building up juniors underneath, going backwards 4 or 5 years, but would go for the same industry, but would not spend the money, would keep it aside as a cushion.
let me answer it a little slightly differently. If Assaf and I were employees working for other firms in our industry, and we were friends, and we were looking at what is happening with AI right now, instead of being one of the people that's waiting to get laid off because, jobs are being eliminated because of AI, I think Assaf and I and our other partners, if we all were friends and we worked for other firms, that we would say there is a tremendous market opportunity right now to go and be a part of the reinvention of this industry. There is going to be a group of thought leaders who reinvent this industry right now, working in harmony with the energy and inertia of AI, and having the insight to know, like Wayne Gretzky, the famous hockey player, said, I don't skate to where the puck is, but to where it's going. I think that's one of the things that sets us apart, differentiates us, is we see where the puck is going, and we've already become an AI first firm. Just it's not even been a year, and we are so far ahead of the curve in terms of bringing efficiency into our own operations, expanding our capabilities, that I think it's actually a really great moment to enter the industry with a vision towards making the way that consulting firms engage with their clients more efficient, more cost effective, and more impactful, where everybody's going to do better by tackling things properly right now. So I don't think any of us have ever been more excited than we are right now, because we see the power of combining the strength of AI with our natural abilities and talents and our experience. So I would say yes, with those stipulations, yes.
Yep. Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
Well, there's different stages, and I'll start this and I'll let Assaf finish it because I can tee it up. The stage where we started to get traction early on, in the early 2000s, and get huge international attention and land some pretty significant contracts, and then be working to support those contracts and fulfill them, all the while letting our pipeline dry up so that there's a big gap then in the next project, and as a result struggle. So there was a period of time, trying to figure out how to get that right was the big challenge and the big struggle. But then, later in the journey, more, in the last few years as a partnership that is blossoming, sorting through how to work together as an effective team, how to be emotionally intelligent, how to be willing to be humble in the moments when you really do need to be the one to be humble. And I think all of us have had to do that at different times. And then in how to learn to build a team and delegate and trust people to do things that maybe you thought, well, I need to be the one to do this. So going through that process is difficult and can be a struggle. And it can actually be a big failure point. Both of those things can be a big failure point. But Asaf, I'm sure could say a lot more about, pipeline management and team growth.
Yeah, I mean, you're asking for the most, and the most stressful point will change of when you ask what is the most stressful point. Recently with some situations we've had, I would say being a small business that is ready to hire executives, senior leaders and executives, um, that is a very tough and stressful transition for a smaller business because you're about to spend a lot of money on a person. You're taking a ton of risk, and you'll need to adjust to that person to some extent, and you have no clue how it's going to go. And the cultural fit, if you hire a junior, it doesn't work. Big deal, right? You get there's 1,000 for every person that you hire. When you go after seniors, executives, it costs you money. I mean, if you use outside firms, when I left the construction company, they use an outside firm, cost tens of thousands of dollars to just start to replace me, right? And without knowing what they're gonna get, right? So hiring executives, it's one of the most stressful point. You're gonna give away responsibility, you're gonna have a big unknown, and it's gonna change the business to the good or to the bad, and you wouldn't know until it may be too late. And if it's too late, you've spent, tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, in salaries and maybe damages that you have to clean up.
What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
The thing that has been most difficult for me in terms of my own personal growth journey, um, I'm a person who has built his career based on following my instincts, right? And I can move very quickly by following my instincts. And as your team grows and as you get other stakeholders, um, learning that you need to go through a process and you need to present your point of view, submit it for consideration. It slows things down quite a bit. But there's a lot more at stake in there. More people are invested. Learning to grapple with changing that mindset from run, 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 and kind of worry about the consequences later, to um, trusting that the process can be the best thing for the company in the long term. It's one of the things Asaf has really helped me work on personally. But it's another reason that when you build a partner team, it should balance. It should balance. I often think of myself as like, well, two of the four partners are kind of the creative side, and two are more of the business side. And you know, Kevin and I are kind of like the balloons that want to float up into the sky, and Brian and Asaf are like, the strings that are attaching us and kind of staking us to the ground, and you kind of regulating that so it doesn't float away.
What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
Payroll day. That's painful. When you're growing fast and you're adding team members, that you're seeing that payroll
Yep.
multiples and multiples and multiples. That could be painful. It was very stressful for every business I was involved in.
And you're also because a lot of what you do is professional services, so you've got to find that balance of go out, find the work, then turn around and go and find more team members. And you're always walking up and down that seesaw, aren't you?
Yeah, and taking a risk, and sometimes hiring, knowing we're probably gonna get that kind of business, we're gonna hire that person because we cannot access to them as a contractor. So yeah, it's stressful.
And what do you love most about growing a small business?
Creating a culture, creating a culture. I think that if there's anything that I'm most proud of in terms of the internal reality of our business. It's that in these very divisive times that we live in this world, very polarizing times, that we have a team of people with diverse perspectives on many issues. But we've been able to cultivate an environment where people focus on the qualities of the actual individuals on the team. We sort of check our ideologies at the door and learn to really care about one another and care about our clients and be really dedicated to the outcome and feeling some pride in helping clients achieve goals. We've got one client right now that we're in our third year with, and they've the very first year that we worked with them, I think we saved them something like $16 million in direct marketing costs
Wow.
and helped them have the first year of growth, a multi-billion dollar company, right?
Mm.
First year of growth in like 6 years. And it's the pride that comes from those kinds of results is nothing to take too lightly. But creating a culture that you keep progressively leaning into those kinds of outcomes and be dedicated to getting our clients there, I think that's what I'm most excited about.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
It's becoming a little bit mindful. So mindfulness, exposure to calmness. There's a lot of stressful things that can happen in the day. Learn how to breathe it in, breathe it out, accept what happened and influence what you can, and not let that derail you completely. During my early career, um, we've had some great challenges that I thought there's no way out of them. And that's when I started to get exposure to mindfulness, meditation, and not letting those bad thoughts chase you, and then look for the light, find it because it is there somewhere. There's always a path. There's always a way out. Find that and then go for it, right? So that is a big shift that happened. And then again, then you grow the business and you got bigger challenges, and what looks like really big 10 years ago and 15 years ago is tiny now compared to the challenges we're having now. So, but the way you handle it is a key, right? And if you handle it correctly, you'll be lucky enough to have greater and bigger problems next year. Right. And I actually told one of my business partners just not too long ago, is the second you run out of problems and you don't have any more business problems, you're out of business. So be grateful for those business problems.
Yeah.
That means you're in business.
The number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Well, I think, what Assaf just talked about with mindfulness, if he went a little further, he'd probably talk about stoicism. And I know he reads the Daily Stoic. He's trying to get me to do it. But that those kind of, habits of taking the time, I can say that when Assaf and I first started as partners, there are times where we kind of backed up and ran towards each other like two charging bulls to butt heads right directly, which obviously creates damage. And one of the things that we've learned over time is that there's ways of kind of diverting energy. I think of some of those martial arts masters who do something more like judo, where you take the momentum of a problem, and instead of crushing it, you kind of get out of the way and divert the energy, and you're not looking to necessarily crush the person, but minimize the damage. And I think when there's conflict, probably the biggest area that I think we focus on is it's not about winning at conflict. It's about maximizing the productive value of interacting over contentious issues and minimizing the damage and the distraction that comes from negative emotional energy just getting set loose. And this has been something that I didn't realize the degree to which I had some unproductive habits with my emotional energy. that I didn't even realize the impact that some of these things, maybe it's just, saying something to somebody and it really could derail them. And it's like, what are you talking about? I made that little comment and that upset you so much, but really coming to terms with, wait a second, um, the things that we say and the things that we do, the energy we project really does matter quite a bit. And we have to take responsibility for understanding our own power and the force of the things that we do, and being willing to invest in optimizing our mindset, our behavior, and the productive impact we have on other people. And probably for that reason, I would say Asaf's one of my best friends. He may not say the same thing about me, but if you just look at like a productive relationship where you're growing and you're reflecting and you feel like you're a better person than you were as a result of having that relationship, there aren't many relationships I have where I could say, wow, I have grown so significantly like I have grown because of this relationship. And I think that's something that we should strive for. And if there's anybody out there listening who's thinking about going into a partnership, or maybe has a partnership, there's some difficulties. Um, I would really encourage towards going through a real inward journey on looking at how you can bring accountability to yourself and how you can be productive in every interaction you have with the people around you. It's not about winning. It's about elevating one another.
Want specific advice to help you get your business through its #1 growth challenge? Book a free 20-minute growth chat with me, Troy, the founder of Grow a Small Business. I'll recommend some resources which will help you grow your business with ease so you can live the lifestyle you've signed up for. Go to growasmallbusiness.com and click on Growth Chat.
Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
Yeah, well, start with really understanding the need for every hire that you're gonna have, right? Don't guess and don't think you'll need a certain position. Think through and analyze and see how that position will help you grow, and then how that position will help you remove responsibilities from yourself. And when you do, trust that they'll do it properly. Right? A few mistakes is hiring a person to do a certain job and then you don't let them do the job because you don't trust them. Just don't hire them. It's going to be a waste of time and energy and money and frustration. They're going to quit, or you're going to fire them. They're not going to be happy. So the advice to it is really, buy into yourself, get excited about what the person will do for you, interview properly, hire slow, fire quick.
What are some things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
Well, I mean, I think it emerges from values. I think that if you do a self-assessment and you see that you're a very values-driven person, then you should naturally want to create a culture that emerges from those values. If you do a self-analysis and find that, you've always kind of gone along with what the crowd was doing and you haven't really thought deeply about your values and personal convictions, if you haven't really developed your own point of view, you're not going to be able to be a leader in creating a dynamic culture. And that idea of having a point of view is very specific. It means that you have really thought through things and you've come to your own conclusions, and you can really stand on them, and you're going to be able to defend them. And if you change, it's going to be because somebody has rationally reasoned their way through helping you evolve. So I think that, understanding your own values and your own foundation and assessing sort of the quality of that. Because if you haven't created that for yourself as a leadership team or as a leader, if you haven't done that for yourself as a leader, as an entrepreneur, you're not going to attract very substantive people to be at a partner level with you or on your executive team. And then as an executive team, if you're not able to lay that kind of foundation, anybody of any quality is going to see that from a mile away. They're not going to want to be a part of what you're doing. They're not going to get excited about joining their heart and their mind and their abilities and their life and risking their livelihood unless they're joining something they feel is very specific and deliberate And really that's one of my most important roles now at Lenker is recruiting, recruiting clients, recruiting staff and other types of partners. And it's really calling people to join you in a vision that they can get excited about. So formulating that vision, having it emerge from values, and really having a solid foundation that's built on values, it's the only real way to get other people to want to follow you.
And tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Yeah, well, I failed in it for quite a few years, and when I started dating my girlfriend at the time, wife now, I was working probably 10 to 12 hours a day, and that was not sustainable for relationship's sake. So I created structure and boundaries. And now when I have kids and family, same thing. I want to see my kids growing up and spend time with them. So what I do, I wake up super early. I'm a 4 a.m.er, get up,
Wow.
4 hours before the rest of the world,
Yep.
get majority of the work done at that point, and leave, the busy work, and the rest of the day handle incidentals, phone calls, meetings, podcast recordings,
Hmm.
and really free up that early evening time, be with the family, and sometimes if needed, I try not to get any end of the day emails that has to go out. I'll once the kids go to sleep, I'll spend 15 minutes on that so I can spend a little bit of time with my wife. But schedule, it sounds bad, but it's actually, I think it's good. It's schedule that in and block that time, right? Make sure you block it in. If you don't, you're gonna eat into that time with your family and friends, and you're gonna lose it, never gonna get it back.
How much professional development have you invested in yourself?
Well, over the years, a lot. In positions I've had in the past, I started my career as an Apple business development executive for a big information systems company. And, I got trained all over the country by Apple to be a systems engineer and sort of a knowledge manager type person. But from there, a lot of sales training, a lot of books, um, not just within the industry, but I've read books about history and physics and some of these architecture, some of these concepts that you find in these other realms of thinking can actually bring real insight into business. One of my favorite books is Logic and Design in Art, Science, and Mathematics by Crone Barrett, a British guy who passed away, I think, in the 70s. But the way he, uh, you know, brought systems thinking into my mind is one of the biggest influences that made me write my own book uh, back in the day. So um, that's my thought on that.
Have you had mentors or coaches along the way?
Yeah, at different stages of my career, I've had mentors and coaches. The pivotal one for me was Dr. Michael Allen. He was one of the co-founders of what is now Adobe. And I was the executive creative director of his e-learning company. And I worked with him for 3 years. And he is one of the fathers of, kind of multimedia. And by realizing that I was in a moment in time where I had daily interaction with one of the great thinkers in our industry, I basically sat at his feet and was like a sponge,
Hmm.
Learning everything he had to teach for 3 years. And he was probably my greatest mentor. He actually wrote the foreword to my book, which was, published by Macmillan, their New Writers Publishing back in 2002. And yeah, not only have I had mentors, but I recommend that if you don't have one, find one. I to this day, 2 weeks ago, I had lunch with a guy who's about 10 or 12 years older than I am, who's retired, and wanted to talk through some of the things that I was dealing with and getting some guidance and a little bit of help thinking through. So those kinds of things always have to be there, I think. So.
Do you have a board of directors or advisors?
We do not. In any of the business we had, in one of my businesses, we had outside advisors for a business venture we were trying to do. So that was for that point. It was we were looking to expand in a franchise manner, and we had no experience, so we did hire an advisor for that purpose.
Right, guys, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
Getting sleep.
Overcoming discouraging thoughts when you experience setbacks. Learning to get up the next day after some difficulty and putting things in perspective. I would say, like I said before, properly understanding the nature of the game for the industry you're in, doing the proper analysis to really be an expert at what's going on, who you're competing with, what the audience needs are. And in particular, understanding the natural relationship stages that it's appropriate to ask your target audience to go through with you. And what I mean by that is you always think of, that picture of 2 people going on a date, and on that first date, one of the people wanting to go too quickly and it scares the other person. And what you find is there's a natural set of things you should talk about on a first date. There's a natural set of things that you should talk about in the first month or so of a relationship. And after more time passes and you go through these relationship stages that are appropriate and they're not scary and they're natural, there needs to be analysis with our various target audiences of understanding what's the natural progression of relationship stages, and what are the relationship milestones that kind of trigger the pivot into the next one, and then being patient to let things unfold in a natural way to get there. Don't ask for the wrong thing at the wrong time. Don't try to go too quickly. Don't scare people off because you're needy, but really think through the relationship stages, and it's different for different audiences. That's one of the keys, I think, and that's one of the things we do with our clients in our work here. The book that we're working on right now is all about that, actually.
Have you got the title of the book and when it's coming out?
It's called The Follow Formula, Taking Command of the Customer Journey. And every time I give a date for when it's going to be done, I miss it because we're busy with growth. But we've got the whole book outlined, and I'm excited for that to come out. Kevin and I are writing it together. So,
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
There's literally hundreds of books that I read, and different books have helped the most in different times. But by far, The Art of the Deal by Donald Trump. I'm joking. That can be edited out. One that I tend to quote a lot is the Toyota way. And what I loved about that is it's showing that there's a way that, that in this case, the automobile industry, and it was designed in a certain way, and everyone thought the Ford way is the way to go, and then they came up and figured out a way that's a lot more efficient, a lot more profitable, a lot more quicker to production, doing the same thing at the end in just a little bit of different mind shift.
Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
I listen to a lot of audiobooks, but I'm so all over the board on podcasts that I can't say, I hate, the podcast I listen to the most is the Joe Rogan podcast, just because it's like a way of unplugging from my reality. But I've read so many books in preparation for writing books that it's really been more about reading other people's books. And so, yeah.
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
A great CRM, building a smart marketing technology stack. We recommend ActiveCampaign for a CRM/marketing automation platform. We recommend Webflow for building, digital environments, websites, and landing pages, and that kind of thing. There's some other great tools for helping with tracking and measurement and those kinds of things. But those two right there are really great. Like any business that uses those tools and learns how to use them correctly can build almost anything they can imagine. Anything we'd recommend can be built very inexpensively without a lot of overhead and external consulting fees. So,
Finally, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
It's going to get harder before it's going to get easier.
Yeah, that's a truism in small business. What about you,
I mean,
John?
if I could go back,
Yeah.
I could go back,
22 years.
buy Bitcoin. No, I mean, I think I think the thing that I would tell myself is this is going to be a lot harder than you think it's going to be. Get ready.
You guys heard of the 4x2 rule?
I haven't.
I heard a VC when I was living in London speak about this. Obviously, he gets hit up a lot for money, and he says to them, it's either going to take 4 times as long, cost twice as much, or take twice as long and cost 4 times as much. The only difference is you get to choose which path.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds true.
Thank you very much for your time today, guys. I really enjoyed our chat. Congratulations on the growth over the last 22 years and adding partners to the business, John, and well done to you and the team and the partners. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Troy. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
We're getting some great iTunes reviews. For those listening, please pop over to your podcast app and leave us a review.